What is going on? Wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. Can you hear me now? It's your boy, Larry Long Jr., back again for this week's The Cold Calling Podcast, Season 2, Episode 17. I got an amazing guest. I hope you can hear me. Put your seatbelt on. The energy is going to be amazing up in here. I can't wait to welcome our guests to the show. Hey, welcome to The Cold Calling Podcast. Once again, we're powered by my friends at Monster Connect. Rawr! Remember, they leverage technology to deliver actual conversations. Remember, we don't want to get voicemails. We want to talk to actual prospects. Who doesn't want to connect with 8 to 12 decision makers per hour? Yes, that's what Monster Connect can do for you. Now, speaking of what Monster Connect or what Brown can do for you, that's an inside joke with my guest. He'll get it. Yeah, Kathy Black. We are here to help you take your game to the next level. For our sales reps, our cold callers, our sales leaders, yes, you, we want to help you succeed in sales. Now, hey, I'm honored on this wonderful Wednesday to welcome today's guest. Coming in from Raleigh-Durham, RTP Research Triangle Park, this guest is a bona fide sales professional, a bona fide sales leader, and I'm absolutely honored to call him my friend. I got to put on the blue blockers because I'm honored to call this gentleman my friend. This is my brother. Let's give a warm cold calling podcast round of applause to welcome in Mr. Greg Pinnix.
Making me Millie Rock in here. Hey, I knew the energy was going to be high today. I already knew with this guy what it was going to be. I took a pre-workout before I came because I knew I had to bring it, and I ain't even working out. So I took a pre-workout. So if I'm sweating, that's why, because my energy is high already.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And this is our first in-person episode. I'm super excited. We might just break the internet. Y'all better put your seatbelts on. Now, Greg, I like to start off every episode with what I call the who, the what, and the why. Who are you?
Okay.
What do you do?
All right.
And why do you do it? The mic is all yours.
Okay. So who I am, Greg Pinnix. Some people call me GP. Most people call me GP. Some people call me G. Some people call me G-Wiz. If I'm in trouble, I'm called Gregory. But who I am, I'm a leader, sales leader, people leader. I'm a mentor. I like to try to mentor from all the way down from little kids to people in college, to my teams that I work with. So I'm a leader. I'm a husband. You might not be able to tell, but I've been married 26 plus years now. Have 2 teenage kids. So I'm a father as well. So 13 and a almost 15-year-old. So that's who I am in a nutshell. So that's who I am, what I do. I kind of mentioned it before. Like I lead. I feel like I'm a leader. I'm a mentor, and really try to help encourage people and keep them motivated, and help them understand that what they're dealing with now, whether it's positive or negative, is not going to be what it's going to be forever. So, and why I do it, like why I do what I do, is really kind of back to who I am. I do it, and it might sound cliche, but I do it for my family. So my wife, my kids. So what I do, why I do what I do, is to hopefully try to be an influence for them first, and also be an influence on others.
I love it. I love it. Welcome to the show. And I got to tell you, Greg, you might not know this, but you've been a mentor for me, a role model, and a guide. And I just got to give you your flowers here, man. I appreciate you. You've been a blessing to me and my family throughout the years. I was thinking back to how we met. And you got to take this back, I want to say probably 15, 16 years.
Yeah, wow.
That was the SageWorks. I know this might be familiar. 150 cold calls a day.
Not a week, a day.
Tell me about your experience.
SageWorks, though, man, it's funny. Like, I met you. I met so many, have so many relationships that I have to this day from my SageWorks experience, right? It was a different time. It was 150 calls a day. Some people might say it was a boiler room type of mentality. The reason they say that is because it was, but I learned so much at SageWorks. I was able to do a lot of things there quicker than I was able to do anything else, right? Because at SageWorks, if you showed the ability to come in and hit goals and work hard, they were going to trust you to do other things. So I love that. Met so many people that I was there. Again, like people that I've talked to this day. And it's kind of like a brotherhood or an alumni association. Like if you can make it at SageWorks, it's almost like what's that old song? If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. If you can make it at SageWorks, you can make it anywhere. So, but yeah, we did meet there. So that was, like you said, 15, 16 years ago. So that was before the kids. That was probably like 35, 40 pounds ago for me too. So it was
50 for me.
Back, for real.
Oh man, those were some good old days. We did our time together at SageWorks and have moved on to bigger and better things. Now, I like to call this next segment "Spill the Tea."
Okay.
Now I know you ain't a zebra. I know you ain't a zebra. But hold on, I know there's something. I know there's something about stripes. So I had to come in my Jason Kidd. Yeah, I got my Jason Kidd
too. That's my guy. That's my guy.
Now tell me, what do the stripes? What does the zebra mean to you, man? I know you got a little background.
Yeah. So some people know, some people may not know. I used to actually be a basketball official. I made it up to college, not big time college. So don't think you saw me Carolina against Duke or anything like that. I know we're in the Tar Heel room now. So I guess since we're in the Tar Heel room, that means we're gonna start fast and we gonna finish slow though, if we like most Tar Heels. But anyway, yeah. So I used to referee basketball. I did a lot of things. In the Chavis League, which is a pro-am league that a lot of pro players from the area used to come back and play in. And actually, that's really selling as well, because a lot of times that's like instant selling. Because if there's a bang bang call, I got to be able to sell that call, whether I'm right or wrong. But the image or the perception has to be to the coaches and the fans that, oh, he's right about that call, because I have to sell it. Like, even though I know I'm wrong, they might, oh, like he's confident with that. It must be a foul the way he's confident with it. But I don't referee anymore though. I did kind of like hang up my whistle a few years back as my kids was getting older and I was traveling a lot for work, and it was just too much being on the road at the time. But yeah, a lot, again, like going back to relationships and friends, that's also a brotherhood that I have. My son plays basketball now, and just about every game that he has, regardless of where we are, if we're here locally for sure, but even if we're on the road, I always know at least one or two of the officials. And my kids like, how do you know all these refs? And it's the brotherhood. So that was a real special time in my life, and run up and down the court and calling fouls and meeting some of the best players that a lot of people know now.
That's awesome. If you're not picking up what he's putting down, he's already shared the importance of relationships. And we've talked about this. It's not what you know, and it's not even who you know. It's who knows you, who trusts you, and who believes in you that makes things happen. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes. This is the Cold Calling Podcast, and it's tough stuff out there. I know that you're a leader of cold callers. You've led teams. You continue to lead teams. You mentor. I want to talk about the mindset aspect, because sales ain't a 4-letter word, but it will make you say some 4-letter words. Talk to me about how you work with your teams around having the right mindset to be ready to experience success.
Yeah. I think a lot of it starts with the mindset, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do. There's books that you can read. There's training courses you can go to. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the right mindset to cold call or to be in sales, then you're going to be doomed before you start. And that mindset doesn't start when you pick up the phone to make the call. That mindset starts the day before or the week before, when you're kind of in a prep mode, when you're in a preparation mode. That's when it starts, right? Is having that positive mindset. And there's a lot of things that reps can do to get in that positive mindset. I think one thing that they can do is visualize. I'm really big into visualization, right? So visualizing those good calls that you had, those calls that you had that you were able to set a meeting. And a lot of times, if you're going through a tough period, because there's always going to be tough periods, like it's going to happen. Even the best salespeople or the best SDRs or BDRs have these cold streaks. So having that positive mindset is the first thing that you need to get out of it, right? And I know we talked about basketball as well, and I've talked to some players, and I try to talk to my son about this. Like, if you're in a negative mindset, it's going to come out in your performance. So whatever you're doing, you have to hunker down and have that positive mindset going in to at least set the foundation of success of a day or a week of call.
I love it. I love that tip of visualization. If I'm a rep, right now, and I'm tuning in, hey, Greg, I'm going through a rough patch. I'm going through some tough times right now. How can you shake me up? What do you recommend I do? I'm going to visualize. I'm going to try my best to have a positive mindset, but how can I, give me something tangible I can do to really get out of a slump? I'm in a slump right now. Help me.
Yeah, I think the first thing you can do is to think about what you have and not about what you don't have, right? So it's hard to be in a negative mindset if you're also in a state of gratitude, right? So the first thing is to be thankful and positive for what you have instead of being a complainer and negative about what you do have, what you don't have. Because at the end of the day, while sales and cold calling is hard, it's not that hard when you compare it to other things. Like you're not on a roof of a house in 100+ degree weather. You're not like doing a lot of other things that a lot of people really is hard, right? So the first of all, like be thankful for what you have, because there are a lot more people that will switch places with you and what you're doing in a minute. There's a lot more people that will actually trade your worst day for their best day, right? Because they're really have real problems and real issues that they're going through. And most of us are really lucky to be able to be in a sales job and be able to do that. So while it's hard, always have a thankful attitude and an attitude of gratefulness. So that's the first thing. Then also, I think it's really important to have, I think you call it a hype squad. I heard on a couple of your episodes, you call it a hype squad. Same type of mentality, but I call it a board of influencers, right? Like I talk to reps and kids all the time about having a board of influencers around you that is going to hold you accountable, that are people that you can talk to when things are going down, when you are slumping into a negative type mindset. Have these people that you can call and reach out to and lean on in those situations. And then more importantly, I think it's important to be that person for other people. I think it's really hard to be negative when you're helping others. So if you feel yourself slumping down to a negative mindset, one thing I like to do is reach out to other people, even people I haven't reached out to in a long time, like just a quick phone call or a text and be like, hey man, just checking on you, seeing how things are doing. It actually happened a few months ago with you, actually. I was going through some stuff. I think my son missed the bus that morning and it threw me off. I was going to be late for a meeting and I was mad. I was going to say something else. So as I'm on the way to work, I was like, okay, I'm not going to have time to prepare for my meeting. I know I'm in a negative mindset going in. So what can I do? So I actually reached out to a guy from Fayetteville State, Isaiah McClain. I just reached out to him. He's a wonderful guy, just graduated. And I hadn't talked to him since graduation. I was at graduation at Fayetteville State. So anyway, I just reached out to Isaiah. I was like, hey man, what's going on? And he was like, everything good? I was like, yeah, man, I'm just calling to check on you. And he was just telling me, and he's trying to get started in speaking. He's making his way. The gold mic, no doubt. I think he's going to be a future star in that business that you do. So anyway, he was asking me about people that I knew. I immediately thought of you, and I got you two connected. And he said to me, he was like, Greg, I was talking to my dad last night. Like, I feel like I'm doing the right things, but I need to have a mentor in this space. And he called me back after he talked to you. He was like, Greg, I feel like I have that mentor. And all it started was for me being in a negative mindset. And when he called me back and shared that with me, because you talked to him right away, like that put me in such a different mindset. So there's no way I could have went into that meeting with a negative mindset, because I was like, oh, like I helped somebody. So that's another thing. So having a board of influencers that you can reach out to, but more importantly, be that resource for someone else. Something else I feel like in order to have a positive mindset, I think, and this is something honestly, Larry, that I've been a skeptic of in my younger days, which is finding a therapist. Like mental health is so important these days, even more so probably after COVID and people dealing with a lot of things. And like I said, I had been a skeptic about that in the past. And like now I'm open to share, like I have a therapist. I've actually had a couple. I feel like I've outgrown a couple, and now I'm with a therapist that I talk to weekly, just about
how I can be positive and how I can still, because I feel like there's a lot that I take on. So just to have a resource to reach out to, a professional resource to do that. So not only a board of influencers, but a professional. And then also meditate every day. I think it's important to have 5-10 minutes of quiet time every single day where you can just kind of block everything out, block out the kids, block out the email, block out everything, and really just have time for yourself. And then also, as it relates to that, I think, and this is where I do kind of fall short of, to be honest. I think it's important while you're doing all those things is to then journal those things. Like each day or each week, take time to journal kind of where you are on your journey. Like if you've had a good day or a bad day, a good week or a bad week, and then be able to document and go back and see like, oh, well, next week I want to work on this because I struggled in this area this week. So I think all those things are important to start to have the positive mindset. So like I said before, it doesn't start when I'm about to pick up the phone and make a call. It doesn't start then. It starts way before that positive mindset and doing those things.
Wow. Make sure that you rewind and you listen to this. He just dropped the mic and gave you 5 things that you can do right now. Perspective, the attitude of gratitude, your board of influencers that can support you, but also folks that you can support as well. Finding a professional to help you with your mental health and the power of therapy, meditating, having time for yourself, and then journaling your experiences. Now, I'm going to dig deep. I'm going to double click a little bit. We all know that with teams, not everyone is doing that. So if I'm trying to do this, but my team around me is pulling me down, how do I throw them bows and shake them haters off?
You mean your team as far as your peers and your colleagues?
Yeah, the people that I work with, I'm surrounded by each and every day.
Yeah.
They talking this junk. How do I get around that?
That water cooler talk, right? That negative talk. And that does happen. So that's one of the things now that a lot of companies are going back into the office. There's positives and there's negatives to it, right? Yeah. And that could be one of the negatives because there's invariably going to be negative talk. So I think it goes back to having those board of influencers and seeking out the people that you feel like have that positive mindset that you strive to be, and having like a mini board within. So you can do things like with those 1 or 2 people, like you guys have your own mini calling contest together where you guys have your own huddles together because you have a similar mindset and a similar goal for how you want your career to be. And not saying that you should totally dismiss the negative Neds or the negative Nancys. Don't totally dismiss those. But like if you know that they're going to weigh you down, you just have to be able to take yourself away from that. And that's not necessarily just with work and some of your peers at work. Like one thing I feel like I've had to do as I've aged and gotten older and hopefully gotten more wise is really try to step away from people that were negative. Like honestly, even people within my family that I feel like are negative, right? And I struggle with that at times because I'm like, this is my family. So like, regardless of how they are, I need to be a certain way. I need to always be there for them, even though if I feel like they're making bad decisions or being negative. But what I've had to come to realize is that what's most important to me is the 3 other people in my 4 walls that I live with. So my wife and my 2 kids. So like if they're distracting from that, like that's my core. Like, so even if it's a family member, even if it's been a long-term friend, but if they're negative and bringing me down, you just have to be strong enough to say like, what's most important to you and be able to cut all of that out, all of the negative distractions out.
That's strong. What I'm hearing you talk about, Greg, is your vision, your goals, that, hey, I don't care if you're blood. I'm focused on my family and taking care of my family. You mentioned that at the very beginning, the power of family. Talk to me a little bit about how do you set goals? How do you set that vision that you want for your life? And how do you encourage your reps to set their goals and vision so that they can be strong?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so from a family perspective, it's easy. So how I set goals, I listen to my wife.
Happy wife, happy life.
Because I feel like if I had listened to her long ago, like we first got married, I would be in a much different place than I am now. So now that I'm not as bullheaded as I was before, like listening to my wife is the first thing that I feel like I should do. But as it relates to the reps, I just think it's a matter of really writing down what you want to accomplish with your career, what you want to accomplish with your life, and writing things down first and taking a look at that, and then going back and say, like, who else do I know either here or not here? When I say here at your place of employment or outside of your place of employment that has similar goals, and really surround yourself with those people, because you guys can help bring one another up. And that's, with today's world, I think in the past it was much harder to do that outside of who you were seeing and who you were seeing on a day-to-day basis. Like now in this virtual world, like you can connect with people all across the world, the country and the world, to be able to have those type things. So I feel like it's important to ask, right? I have been times where I've been too prideful to ask for help, but I think if you have to realize that most people at their core, they really want to help, but you just have to ask for it, right? So even if it's somebody that you're connected with on LinkedIn, or maybe it's a second connection on LinkedIn or something like that, and you see kind of what they're posting, and most times if you reach out to them and ask for help, they will help you. And I think that's important, to just ask for help.
That's powerful. And Greg, you couldn't have teed it up any better. If folks want to reach out and ask Greg for help because he's such a wealth of knowledge, check him out on his LinkedIn. I know that he would love to support you. Now, you've mentioned several times about mentorship, about how you're mentoring others. I would love to hear, who are those most memorable mentors that you've had that have sewed into you to help you get to the successes you've had?
There's a couple that come to mind initially. So one was, I would say a mentor was my first manager when I went to Avalara about 10 years ago. And I was going through the interview. Well, let me actually take that a step back. So first of all, when you talked about relationships, and it's about who knows you type thing, that actually helped me get in the door at Avalara when I started there a few years ago. So it was one of those things where I had applied for a role there, and it's probably a role that was a little bit too big for me at the time, but I still applied for it anyway. And then I had lunch with a friend, right? Ron Reed. I don't know if you remember Ron Reed.
Yeah.
So I had lunch with him. I said, hey, man, I just applied for this company called Avalara. Do you know anyone there? He was like, yeah, my friend works there, right? And he called her while we were on the spot. And we talked, and I was like, hey, well, if you don't mind, like, referring me. She was like, yeah, what's your email address? So I gave her my email address. She did it right there. And she said, I can't because it says you've already applied. I said, okay, we'll just use this alternate email address. So instead of my Gmail, I think she used my Hotmail or whatever. So a week later, I get the proverbial thanks, but no thanks, you're not a good fit. My alternate email, looks like you're a great fit. Same information. Right. And so we want to have you talk a little bit more. So that started the process. My manager that was bringing me in at the time, he told me, he was like, Greg, like, on paper, I probably shouldn't bring you in. Right. Like, because it's other people, they want to have somebody that already had a Rolodex and have more experience with enterprise selling at the time. He's like, but it's something about you that I feel like I should do off the paper. Like I should go off the paper. I shouldn't grade you off of what's the paper. And what was interesting about that, he's actually in Seattle, and he actually was in Durham at the time, and randomly just had me come in. Right. So right place, right time. So long story short, I got in, and I just feel like he's a mentor that believed in me and brought me in, even though on paper, like, he had to sell it to his boss, I'm sure. And then, I was able to have a successful career there. Also, as I'm thinking about answering this question, I feel like every person that comes to mind are people that believed in me, right? I feel like there's been times in my career And kind of going back to my therapist, my therapist kind of like helped unpack this for me. There's been times in my career where I thought I was I don't know if I cuss here. So I thought I was the shiznit, right? And you couldn't tell me anything. No. But then I've been on the other end of the spectrum where I thought I was shiznit and not the shiznit. Like where I went from thinking I'm the best and nobody can touch me to thinking I'm the worst, right? But as I'm thinking about who's been the biggest influencers for me, it's been people that believed in me. So it was when I first started there, I had another manager that helped push me into leadership because I had always been successful as an individual contributor, and was a little bit scared about doing it. Didn't know if I wanted to be a leader. Honestly, didn't know if I could be a good leader. And he would always tell me like, Greg, like, I can see you need to be a leader. Like you're a leader on the team now anyway. You just need to like step out and be a leader. He was also a coach. He was a football coach, and I was coaching basketball at the time as well. And he was just like, a lot of things that you're doing that you tell me, we're not even having a conversation about it, but we're just having just a one-on-one, and we're talking about what you're doing. He said, the way you tell me you operate your team, your basketball team, would easily translate into being a leader, right? So he kept pushing me, and I finally did it. And he was somebody that believed in me, right? And then the last person is actually not the only female leader. Because I hadn't had that many female leaders, which is a problem because we should have way more female leaders than we do. But I also had a female leader named Heidi Laws. And she wasn't even my leader for that long, honestly, before I left that particular company. But she was also a leader that really believed in me. And when I say believed in me, and I felt like she was a leader that cared about me more so, not just the quota attainment that my team would hit, but also like what was going on. And she was one that really kind of like tapped into the positive energy and the positive mental aspect and how important that is. So those are the three people. So two male leaders, the one that brought me in the elevator, and then the leader, Terry Arndt, I don't think I mentioned his name. Terry Arndt was the guy that really pushed me into really being in leadership. And then Heidi Laws, who really kind of tapped into other things outside of just the leading the team. So those are the three mentors that really made an impact for me.
That's powerful. For all the leaders out there, sometimes you got to give folks a chance. Sometimes you got to believe in your folks. For the folks that are out there that might be struggling with that belief, this is a great example right there of really finding someone who's going to lift you up, who's going to uplift you. They're out there. You might not have it right now, but know that there's folks that give a damn, that care about you. I absolutely love to hear that. Now, we've got a little bit of time.
Hold up, you said give a damn. I thought I couldn't. I wouldn't have said shit. But
I don't want the FTC knocking on my door with a fine. So we'll keep it PG-13,
no
GP.
Doubt. No doubt.
Other than Monster Connect, talk to me about some of the tech tools that got you excited. Are you excited about AI, IM, robot, chat GPT?
It's funny you say that, man, because I do feel like, AI is something that is here. It's not going anywhere, right? And it's one of those things where I feel like we should embrace, instead of like being able to say like, oh, like it's not. I don't want to be like my grandma back in the day when the internet first came out. She's like, oh, that's just a fad. It's not going to be here. Like, no, it's here and it's going to stay. Yep. So we have to embrace it for what it is, but not totally like lean 100% on it. Some other tools that I like to use though, like me and my teams use Gong, which is a call technology that records call. And that kind of goes back to the positive mindset, because a lot of times with the positive mindset, the best time to make a call is actually after you had a sale or after you booked a meeting, because then you have that euphoria of like, oh, I can do this. So you want to make another call right away. So a way to kind of trick yourself into making a good call, just go have a folder of calls, of positive calls. And when you're in a bad stretch, listen to some of those positive calls that you've had. It's your voice that you're having. And then you can kind of trick yourself like, oh, because the brain is powerful. Like if you think it, that's what's going to happen, right? So if you listen to a positive call, your brain doesn't necessarily know like, oh, this is fake, right? So you trick yourself into having that positive mindset to the next call by listening to some positive calls. But Gong is one. Obviously, the big ones like Salesforce we use to as a CRM to kind of track everything. Outreach, SalesLoft are both good technologies to stay on top of the emailing piece. I know it's a cold calling podcast, but for emailing and staying on top of the cadences and what you're sending out. But a lot of the cold calling with preparation is about the emails that you're sending ahead of the time anyway. LinkedIn Navigator, Zoom Info are great. LinkedIn is obviously great just because it gives you a lot of information about the people that you're reaching out to be able to do that prep work ahead of time. So those are some of the big ones.
Love it. Love it. In addition to Monster Connect, we got to give a shout out
you already know.
to Monster Connect.
Monster Connect.
Now, Greg, for the cold callers out there, give me your number one best piece of advice. If I'm out there, I'm grinding every day. Now I'm making 150 calls, but let's say I'm making 50 calls a day. What's your best piece of advice to me right now?
The best one piece of advice?
Give me two or three.
Okay. I think it starts with preparation first, right? And again, the preparation is what you're doing ahead of time before you're making the calls, right? So doing your research, I think, is important. You don't want to just go into making a block of calls blind. And with those calls, I think it's important to have a script, but not be so rigid with the script, right? You have to be able to tailor that script based off of the persona that you're reaching out to, or based off of the industry or the segment. But I think the biggest thing that I see reps struggle with, and sometimes it's not even just new reps, it can be older reps as well. Like the biggest thing I see reps struggle with is they don't ask enough questions, or they don't ask deep enough questions, meaning where I've listened to a number of calls, hundreds probably of calls, where the prospect or the contact will have something that our technology addresses, and then they go right into sales mode right away, right? So the biggest thing is, instead of going right into sales mode, you ask deeper questions and better questions and build that pain up even more. And this is something I learned years ago with the old spin methodology. And so the implication of what they're addressing is where I see most reps, because if you can build that pain up more and more and more before you actually go in for the sale or the meeting, I think that's where reps lose. Because if you just go with that, then they're going to give you an objection. But if you build it up higher and higher and make that problem that they may think is small, the more questions you ask, it seems bigger and bigger, and then go in for the meeting request or the sale as it may be. So I think preparation, having a script, but tailoring that script based off of your who you're speaking with, and then also asking more questions, deeper questions.
Ooh, that's powerful. That's a good one to end on right there. Greg, I can't thank you enough for joining us. And let me see. I gotta ask you. We're gonna do a spill the tea.
All right.
Part two.
Oh, we did that already.
that was part one. My mind is I want to make sure I keep this PG-13, but I gotta ask you, what's your most memorable that you can share with us story from SageWorks? I know there were some wild times.
Oh, wow.
I know there was the car incident when we were in the car, and we can't talk about that.
On the way to Wilmington.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, I got one. And it's definitely PG. Going back to relationships. So it had to be like 15, 16 years ago. When we talked about SageWorks and being able to do things quicker. One of the things that I was able to do at SageWorks that I wouldn't have been able to do at any other company, at least so quickly, probably for a 3-4 month window, I guess I was like the head of recruiting, right? so we had like a goal of, I don't know, 50, 75 people that we had to bring in over the 3 months or so. So bringing in people, interviewing them face-to-face. And this guy actually came, he actually was a coworker of mine 15 years later. But we talked about this. So he came in for the interview, super sharp dude. And when he came in to sit down for the interview, he missed his chair and he crashed into the window behind him. Right. And when he crashed into the window, his head hit the window, and it was like I'm asking him if he's okay. And he got up and he did the interview. He actually ended up getting the job. And then when I saw him 15 years later, in my mind, I still had that image in my mind of him falling out of his chair, and he was right out of college. And now Riley Dunn. I don't know if you remember Riley.
Yeah, I remember Riley.
Riley Dunn, and we laughed about it when I saw him several years later. And in my mind, I'm thinking right out of college, Riley, and now he has 4 kids and has his own business now and everything. So that's one of the memories of SageWorks that I can remember, along with having 3 people in one mini office at one time, and a lot of other things like that. But
fun times. Make sure when you're going for an interview, like AI said, you practice. You got to be prepared to make sure you land in the chair. But I love, Greg, how you shared those 4 tips in terms of preparation in advance. You talked about having a script, but not being rigid with, I have to follow the script.
Yeah.
The importance of asking questions, getting deep on the questions, and then building up the pain, the problems, the implication of the pain. This was amazing.
I'm going to give you a bonus, too.
Okay.
A bonus.
What's
so
the bonus?
+1 is know your numbers, right?
Ooh.
I feel like there's enough technology out there and enough reports and analytics that you have to know your numbers. So your numbers might be different from your peer. So you need to know how many numbers on average it takes you to book a meeting. You need to know when is your best time to call. Some people, they might be better in the mornings. Some people might be better in the afternoons or the late evenings on Friday. So be really intentional about understanding your numbers and what it takes for you to be successful, and then use that as a baseline for success as well.
I love it. You got data, know your numbers. This is the episode of Shark Tank right there. Make sure you know your numbers. I can't thank you enough, Greg. Hey, if you enjoyed this, make sure you smash that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you tune in next Wednesday, episode number 18. We got a treat for you coming up the day before Thanksgiving. I think that we won't just have one, but we might even have 2 guests coming to us from the logistics industry. Knock on wood. Make sure that you see us next Wednesday, the 22nd of November. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make it a wonderful Wednesday. We'll holler at you next week. Peace. Thank you so much, Greg.